welcome to the Watchlist. Back again here at the Latin Nerds Network. Of course, your virtual TV guide. Kind of give you an overview of everything that came out in streaming, what we thought, what you should and shouldn't watch. Basically, kind of help you navigate the seas of all things streaming. Of course, I'm not alone. I'm joined by my TV guru, if you will, Big Bro himself, live from Houston, the one and only Senor Jaime Romero, aka Chewy. Welcome, brother, to the show.
What up, brother? What's going on, man?
Oh, good, man. Actually, a much better week of TV than last week. Not that last week was terrible, but it was aight. This week's a little better, I think.
There's more quality.
Yeah.
Less of it, but more quality, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of good stuff to talk about here. So let's get into it. And the first things first here, because, I obviously, my thoughts on Suicide Squad, I've already put on the channel, my review. My other show, Nurse Planning, we got a spoilerific review of it. But Chewy, you were an anti-Suicide, the Suicide Squad fanboy, I guess. You were not a fan of the trailers. You were not really excited about this one. So I assume you saw it on HBO, via HBO Max, where it's available now or in theaters. So Chewy, curiosity comes out here. What do you think about the Suicide Squad?
You assume too much, my friend. I haven't seen it yet.
You didn't see it yet? Oh, I thought you saw
I'm
it.
gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it today.
Oh, you're
because I went away
kidding
from
me.
my son. He was working last couple of nights, so he wanted to watch it. So I was like, okay, I'll wait.
I
Sorry,
thought
sorry,
you had
guys.
seen the Suicide Squad.
I'm sure it's gonna be good and fun and all this stuff, and it's
It,
best DC, whatever, blah blah blah.
relax. It's not the best DC. It's
Okay.
not the. I'll
Okay.
say this, and I said this before a couple of times. It's not the best DC film. It's up
Okay,
there.
that's
I
fine.
think that's preference. I mean, I'm a Man of Steel guy, so it is what it is. Um,
I am. I did read some reports, and the numbers aren't looking good. And I don't know what the HBO Max numbers are, but theater numbers are not very good
yeah,
for what
I
they're
don't
expecting.
know. I mean, it's rated R. HBO Max is gonna steal views away, so I honestly don't. I
Mm.
don't know what to make out of the box office these days.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's.
exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot of COVID. Obviously, you got the new strand, so I don't know. It's
Who knows?
interesting.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
I don't think the final numbers are in. I am curious what it did. They had a good Thursday for what it's worth in the COVID
Mm.
era in terms of rated R releases, whatever for whatever that means. There hasn't been a lot of them, and none of them to this size. So we'll see. Listen, I really liked it. I thought it was super fun. I really enjoyed it. Not the best DC film, not the top five comic book film of all time, but it's good. I'm kind of curious when you watch it. We'll talk about that a little briefly next
Yeah,
week. So I thought you had seen it, so that's my
my
mistake.
bad.
Oh, okay, that fair enough. But listen, that's my quick take on it. I think you should watch it. Get HBO Max. You're not paying anything for it, so you might as well give it a shot, right? It can be worse than the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad, of course, back in
That's correct.
2016, 17.
The David Ayer cut.
Release the Ayer cut, man. Come on, you got Snyder. Let's give us an Ayer cut. But either way, so let's move on here to other stuff released. There's a couple of movies I want to talk about. I'm pretty sure you didn't see this one, Chewy. That much I know. Maybe that I don't know. But this movie that I caught on Netflix release is called Aftermath. This was kind of like a horror-esque kind of film,
Yeah.
starring Ashley Greene and
But
Sean.
before
Oh,
before you get into it, I did follow your recommendation. I did watch The Vault
oh, okay. And
with the high
what'd you
school. Yeah,
think?
I enjoyed it. It was fun.
It
It
was
was
good,
cool.
right? Yeah, it's a
I
solid
mean,
flick.
obviously, it definitely set up for a sequel. I mean, it kind of like left it. I mean, walk through that door. But it was. I think it was fun. It was interesting. Not original. Let's call it what it is. But still a fun heist movie,
Yeah,
and with the
exactly.
with the typical twist and backstabbing. Like I said when you mentioned about watching this movie, it's like it rinse, star,
Sure.
repeat.
The
But
tropes are
still,
there.
still interesting. Yeah, still
Exactly.
interesting.
It's a good
So
watch. It's a fun
good
watch. It's
fun.
not a
Yeah,
bad film.
good
Yeah,
fun on that.
and I wish I could tell you the same thing about this one.
Okay, good.
Unfortunately, you're not a horror guy anyway, so you probably weren't gonna watch it. But Sean Ashmore is also in this, who is Iceman in
Iceman.
Bryan Singer's version of the
Mhm.
X-Men and all that. He was in The Boys actually
And
last
yes,
season.
right. He was
Yeah,
torch,
yeah,
the
torches.
torch.
You'll figure ice, not
Yeah.
fire. It's kind of funny.
Mhm.
But so I saw this one, and for the first three quarters, I was like, I was actually gonna recommend this film. It's basically a story about an estranged married couple. Of course, the wife who had recently cheated on the husband, slut. And they're trying to work things out, so they kind of buy a house to kind of restart their marriage. Of course, they buy a house where recently two people had just got murdered in. That's not a red flag. I don't know
Was
what
that
is, but
in was that in the disclosure form?
Yeah, well, they knew because the guy who actually works he cleans up, I guess works not
Okay.
forensics, but he cleans up
Seeing,
dead
yeah,
bodies and seeing
yeah.
whatever. So he's aware, but he got it on the cheap. He's like, hey, why not? What can go wrong? Well, that being said, they moved to the house and they noticed, well, the wife mainly noticed a lot of strange shit going on. It's almost like a haunted house kind of situation. So you have those tropes. It was actually pretty interesting. And then comes the ending. It just, the reveal was just, it
Yeah,
just really
yeah,
took
yeah.
the air out of everything. And this supernatural thing they were presumably setting up wasn't exactly that. So yeah, I'm not gonna recommend that at all, unfortunately. So it is what it is. And yeah, Chewy, don't have to watch this one. I don't recommend it.
Okay.
But I did forget something real quick off the top here before we move on to the next showing. Is that we do have some sad news to report, obviously, and I hate doing this sometimes because death happens all the time. But it is what it is. So in memoriam, our dedication here is to one recently deceased show, and that is of Panic, an Amazon original show which lasted a whopping one season, released, oh man, this year, and it's already
This
been
summer.
it's been canceled already. I wasn't a huge fan of the show. Troy, I don't know. I think you liked it. I
I
mean, it
mean,
was
I
fine.
was a
I didn't hate the
fan.
show. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was okay. It wasn't a great show, but it was fine for what it was. But yeah, if you hadn't seen it, don't bother. If you've seen it, oh well, it
Oh,
is
well.
what it is. I mean, that's not the first show to cancel. Won't be the last. So our condolences to the Panic fans out there. I'm not really one of them. So that being said, I wanted to mention that out there. But that being said, so another movie I caught Chewy was another one. Speaking of Amazon Prime, I don't know if you saw this or not. We kind of joked about this before, and that's Val, and that was
Uh,
yeah.
I wasn't sure. I'm gonna see what you say. Let me listen to what you think about
Yeah,
this.
so this was, if I'm familiar with it, obviously it's obviously a story or a documentary movie about, of course, Val Kilmer, big star back in mid to
The once great
the
Val
once
Kilmer.
great Val Kilmer, who was poised to become one of the top dogs in Hollywood. Right, he had a started out in the '80s of Top Gun, of course, Iceman, we know it, Real Genius, Top Secret,
Classic comedy.
classic ridiculous comedies. And
Batman. I
then
forget his then it's
Batman,
Batman.
yeah, not the best
Well,
Batman,
okay,
but
sorry.
he was Batman, and that says
Yeah.
something about his career, right? Yeah,
Well, I mean,
Tombstone, yeah.
when you were selected as Batman, it's like you were in the upper echelon
Oh, right, exactly.
of
You're an
actors
A-lister.
at that time.
Yeah, you're an A.
Yes.
He had to follow Michael Keaton after he left
Hmm.
the series, and then what's his movie? Doc Holliday, which is my favorite role he's ever done. Of course,
Oh,
Tombstone.
Tombstone.
Tombstone, yeah, that
Tombstone.
was his quintessential role. I think The Doors, he was Jim Morrison,
Oh,
of
that was
course.
good. He was
Yeah,
in The Saint. I don't know if it was a good movie, but he was in the movie
Sane,
with
yeah, whatever. He had
yeah.
his moment, and obviously, he was rumored to be very difficult to work with, and his career kind of just disappeared beyond that. He had steady work and a whole lot. But either way, so this is a documentary that he produced, and it's interesting. It's a very kind of up and down one. It's very emotional because obviously it's first person perspective, and he uses what's cool. He uses a lot of footage that he shot himself over the years. Home video footage of his family when he was actually on set with Tom Cruise and the others from Top Gun and etc. And I think his very first play when he actually had video footage of a very young Kevin Bacon
Wow.
and Sean Penn who
Wow.
who upstaged him because he was up for the lead. Then Kevin Bacon came in, he got it. He's up for the second lead, and then Sean Penn got it, and then he ended up sticking with the third. But so it's a lot of cool footage. So that's very intimate look at his life, and I'll say this: this is really, it's got really good reviews. So I was looking forward to this one, but ultimately it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
This is one where if you grew up with Val Kilmer, it's a cool watch because it's kind of a walk down memory lane, right? Seeing in these roles, and he talks about how he got the roles of Top Gun and so forth, and talking a little bit about Batman, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously it deals with, clearly he has some tragedies, which I didn't know about his little brother who passed away when he was young, and a drowning accident, and his mom died and all that, and obviously the throat cancer, which is a big deal because now he can only talk when he has little things in his throat. I don't know what they call those things, but that's the only reason he can talk, and even then he's you can't really understand him too well, so everything he says is kind of subtitled,
Very
and
mechanical, very raspy.
yeah, and it's narrated by his son, who not narrates, some that Val Kilmer wrote. It's solid. It's okay. Listen, if you're a fan, I think you should watch it. It's cool because of that. If you didn't go with Val Kilmer, don't know anything about him, it's not an interesting story, right? I'm not saying it's a bad story, but you watch these documentaries, you want to see something so out there and cool, and there's a couple we'll get into as far as what the difference between a good and a mediocre documentary is. So yeah, if you're a fan, you want to catch your favorite wingman, see what he's up to. There's some cool stuff in there. There's some emotional beats. Yeah, fine. But I'm not really, like, true, I wouldn't tell you to go rush and watch it. You know,
Okay. Okay.
it's a little too long. It should be like an hour. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. But again, you like me grew up with Val Kilmer, right? In that time frame. So yeah, it's cool. It's fine. But if you don't know who he is, he's just not that interesting enough to, I say, go watch his documentary at all. I know people are
Yeah.
allergic to documentaries to begin with, and the subject matter is not that interesting. It's not going to hook you. It's just not. So forget about that. But let's talk about one documentary. I know you definitely saw, and one which
I know.
I'll say now I really, really, really like this documentary, and that's Cocaine Cowboys on
The Kings of
Netflix. The
Miami.
Kings of
Oh
Miami.
yeah.
That's right. It's pretty much chronicling the story of Sal Magluta and Willie Falcone.
Willie Falcone.
Yeah,
Yep.
two notorious Miami cocaine kingpins back in 70s, 80s, and a story that really lasted through all the way through the 2000s, 2010s for that matter. And Troy, let you take lead on this. What'd you think about this one? I think it's a 6-episode docuseries.
6 episodes, directed, produced, written. Might have been written by David Corbin. So he's done a previous iteration of the History Channel and Nat Geo, Coke Cowboys, which focused on a completely different aspect. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is more of a rehashing of what he's already told. I know this was an original take on even though it has the same name, but this is specific to Will and Sal, right? And I found this documentary. I mean, I couldn't stop watching. It's one of these. It hooks you in. It's in its style and its format. Telling the story. It's not a history lesson of this is how they started and just basically it's 1.5 episodes of their beginnings and how they rose the empire. But it was quick, and they get into the trial. They get into all the players. They get all the people who turned on each other. Everyone who was around them who was part of this organization, this drug organization. And obviously heavy focus on the prosecution and the police efforts, and obviously with everything going on in Miami at that time with all the corruption. And I even forgot some of this about especially the jury tampering shenanigans that happened mid-90s, and obviously we were living there at the time, going to school and whatnot. So, but you kind of forget about this because this is 25, 30, 40 years ago, really. This whole story, but it was just done in such a way that it's so interesting, so gripping, and you want to find out more. And obviously these are interesting people, right? I mean, it's one thing to sit in front of a camera and interview the lead lawyer or the lead snitch or juror. It can be very boring, very dry, but it's produced and put together in such a way that it brings you in, and you want to find out the whole story. You want to get into the hood of the car and find out why, when, how, what, and then not necessarily a history lesson, but it's definitely good, makes for good drama.
Yeah, this was a must watch for me. Absolutely must watch. I love this documentary, and this could have surpassed Heights, which was my favorite at the time. And it's told in a similar way because, yeah, you're right. You were in there interviewing people who were directly involved, out of the people in their organization, drug dealers and whatever.
The wives, the brother-in-laws, the friends, the drug runners, the CEOs and the COOs of this whole stuff, the girlfriends. I mean, it's like
the jurors who were involved in the first initial trial, and obviously, well, the conspiracies came to fruition with the tampering and the bribing and all that. And dude, it's fascinating. This is like you see this in all these movies and drug movies. It's all rolled up. You get this all here, right? You can't write this stuff. It is all legit as far as even those snitches who were gonna get whacked. And there were attempts in their lives, and some of them failed, and those people who were saved,
came close to
survived the assassination. They're there talking about it, and they testified, and this is why snitches get stitches, and it is fast. So, but it was incredibly engaging because I really thought you're right. I'm like, okay, another drug story. I've seen this a thousand times.
Here we go
right?
again.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, cool. All right, we've seen shows and documentaries. And then I like the subject matter, but it's like, okay, you've seen one, you've seen them all sometimes. And I'm thinking, and the first episode and a half was exactly what I thought, right? It kind of chronicles their lives.
The history, where they came from, who they met up with to start this whole thing. And, from the, I want to say, humble beginnings of dealing dime bags at Miami High, shout out. And the Cuban community to all of a sudden be thrust into, cocaine kings all of a sudden and going from there. They touch very lightly on the whole Colombian connection, obviously.
Right.
You can't get away from it, but that is not the focus there. It's how they got to where they were, and they took it and where it ended up at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the focus, because after episode and a half, you got another 4.5 episodes of the trial, which is fascinating. The jury tampering, what happened after that, and then they escaped and came back and they were captured. I mean, it's so much to this. It's very dense, but it's very entertaining. Absolute must watch. This is, yeah, I love this one. It's this maybe, I think that's maybe the best documentary I've seen all year. I'm not sure if you agree with that, but it might be the best one I've seen this year.
I have to go to the list, but it's definitely out there. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Just maybe a knee-jerk reaction, but that's how good this one is, and it's completely captivating.
And David Corbett, this is his forte. This is what he does. He's good storytelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. He's not a, when we talk about the guy from Suicide Squad, where he's a good writer and director, but he's telling a different type of story. He can take reality and parcel it into a way where it becomes interesting and gripping, and just like watching a great movie, right?
Yeah, it really
Even
is.
though it's based on real life, real story. But sometimes truth is better than fiction.
Exactly. Again, again, those who are allergic to this, give it a shot. Take some Benadryl, I don't know, figure it out. You have to watch it. It's really, really good, really engaging. Another one, a drug-related documentary on Netflix, and that's one that called Shiny Flakes, the teenage drug lord, if you will. And this one, much different. It's drug-related. This is a German documentary.
Yes.
If I'm wrong,
it's a German individual.
Right, happened in Germany, obviously. Some young teenager who found a way to sell drugs on the internet and really, did it very well. And took him a few years for anyone to figure out how he was doing in the police and all that, leading to his arrest and etc. Interesting story. What do you think about this one?
Well, I mean, I'd seen the series, the fictionalized series, How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, which just wrapped up its third season. I'm not sure if there might be a fourth, obviously, looking at this movie.
I'm not
sure. It's quirky, it's funny, it's compact. It's obviously highly fictionalized because you want to look at the show compared to what actually happened. It's vastly different. But one's entertainment, one's real life. This was about hour and a half, hour 40, I think. So it's not too long. But I found that interesting because I had seen this show and I wanted to know more about this guy. And this is basically literally a high school teenager who just kind of stumbled onto the online underworld of obtaining illicit narcotics online, and he essentially created an Amazon for drug buying.
Genius,
the way he describes it, it was relatively simple. But no, exactly. The police couldn't figure out how and why and why. I mean, just by sheer luck, they came upon him, or bad luck, right? But I mean, he just grew an empire quick, and he and it's just interesting on looking at his reaction about all this, right? Yes, he got to jail, but he got off easy first time around, and you get a little bit of glimpse of what happened to it afterwards and what's pending, right? Because some of the prosecutors didn't want to talk about because obviously it was pending litigation, potential litigation, as we find out at the end of the documentary of our pending arrest. So, but very interesting. I mean, it's just a normal kid. No, I don't want to say normal, but isolated. Did all this out of his bedroom. I mean, found some suppliers online, literally, and he just created this empire and was just making gobs and gobs of money, of which they don't know where it is. I think I know where it is. Yeah, he knows where it is.
We know where it is.
He knows. They don't know. And I hate to say it, but kudos to him, man. Stick it to the man.
Listen, it's just, capitalism at its best. You find a way. Why not? And it's funny because it was again. It's a solid. It's not great. This is not Coke and Cowboys.
That's solid. It's solid.
I think it's a worth watch. It's good filler. But it's fascinating how even the officer was saying that he grew it was a big empire, whatever it is. They couldn't believe that it was just one guy and one kid, and for that matter, who did all this, because the quantities that he moved, they found it so difficult for a one-man operation to deal with these kinds of quantities. And that was a big thing about it. It was just fascinating. I mean, this guy just lived and breathed this business for a short period of time, and kudos to him, man. But it's cool, interesting, it's fascinating. Of course, you don't hear this kind of thing every day, not in this sense. So I recommend it. Not again, watch Coke and Cowboys first and foremost. If you still into that drug mode and you want to see something else on it, why not? Not a bad watch. Another one here that came out this week was an Israeli show called Hit and Run, and this was a kind of an action thriller mystery kind of deal. It kind of reminded me of this is what a Liam Neeson movie would be like in a sense.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah. So basically, if I had this guy who's ex special force or something like that. Of course they always are. And he lives in Israel and he's a tour guide, right? He's mild mannered now. He's got his daughter, whatever, and he ends up marrying some American woman, a dancer, young dancer. And one day she gets run over and killed in a hit and run accident. and he finds out there wasn't exactly a hit and run accident, so now he's hell bent on finding out the truth behind what happened. And he starts discovering all these things about his wife and her parents, etc., etc. And of course, mayhem ensues, and I'm about 4 episodes in and all that.
Cue the Liam Neeson line.
Oh, I will find you.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, it's
Good luck.
It's kind of typical in that sense. But it's so far, like I said, I haven't finished it, and this could end really bad. But so far, it's not bad, to be honest with you. I'm actually kind of enjoying it. For now, I'm recommending it. I'm not saying it's must watch, but the mystery behind what's going on is pretty good. It's well produced. I'm not familiar with TV from Israel. So this is my first venture into that I can remember anyway.
And also, it's mostly in English. It's not the dubbed show.
Right. It's both.
For the fans. Everyone thinks it's not. It might be classified as an international, but this is done in English. Yeah, it's subtitled when they speak Israeli,
right,
and whatnot. But they take place in Tel Aviv. And this part where it takes over in New York and other locations. But it's all mostly in English.
Exactly, and again, the mystery it's unfolding little by little, and it's actually well done. It's actually well shot. I won't go as far as say it's an action thriller. I know they're kind of advertising as such. Maybe it will towards the second half. There is action in it, of course, a couple of fight scenes and car chases and the usual stuff you find in this kind of shows. But I like it. But True, your thoughts on that?
No. I mean, I've just seen a couple episodes. As we talked about last week during the setting up the month. Mm-hmm. You when I mentioned that show, you had a little frown on your face. You were unsure. And so maybe the script's in the gutter. But I read the script and I was into it, and so far it's lived up to my expectations. Of what I read and what I expected, and hopefully it ends on a high note.
Yeah, exactly. You never know with these. This one I could see unraveling very quickly, but thus far, okay.
So far so good.
Yeah, so far so good. I'm buying what's going on. Okay, I'm following this guy, and then let him kick their ass, and whatever it is, what it is. And you get a lot of typical, espionage kind of tropes in there. I mean, again, nothing. It's not breaking the mold here. It's almost like The Vault, right? It's standard fare for this kind of story, but it's done well enough. Right, and it's capturing enough intrigue. Okay, I want to see what's going on. We'll probably talk about this next week, just to see how it ends. Because obviously, if you don't get a chance to see it this week, you're interested in seeing how is it worth watching the whole thing. We'll let you know. But right now, it's a thumbs up at this point. Last one here, True, and we haven't talked about this in a few weeks. A show that's very near and dear to our hearts, of course, and that's Rick and Morty. Taking us across the boob land, almost, if you will, and the show would start off great. I think then it kind of took a little bit of a slide, but I think now it's back to where we expect Rick and Morty to be back, but taking the last couple episodes. What do you think?
I agree wholeheartedly. There was the Planetine episode, which is funny, right? Because it was playing out the Captain Planet trope of the '90s,
sure, this is good,
and everything. That was great. The next episode with Incest Baby was just, and the Spur was just. For me, it was uncomfortable just sitting with my son and watching this, and like, oy vey. For myself maybe, but I don't think it was as high up as the other episodes. But then we got to turn around with the Thanksgiving exploitation one, which was just great. We got awesome. More present. We got classic Rick and Morty shenanigans. We had a little National Treasure action with going into the vault and the Constitution and the map. I mean, it was just cleaning off a whole bunch of movies and making fun of stuff, and then the whole Indian aliens and pilgrims, and it was just so. I thought it was fun. The whole turkey transformation back and forth was just great. Speaking of which, they had a guest speaking role by Timothy Oliphant, was the head Marine. Not to be confused with Josh Duhamel.
Whatever his name is.
Shout out to Eric Da Silva. But I thought it was great. And then this last episode, which basically is the whole Voltron episode, I just could not stop laughing. Yeah. I mean, this is one episode we know it was coming. We had seen it. In the previews and in the intro, there was some sort of Voltron throwback to it, and this was just hijinks. I mean, brought in multiple versions of the families. It's the ferrets instead of the lions. The whole Jerry speech about. So why don't we take this trip to go to vacation, just come back together in space?
Yeah, I mean, God, this may be the best episode since the second one. I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it was up there. Now, I had seen people, I guess, read reviews, and people weren't, I don't know, people, I guess, just think it's just a ripoff from a previous Community episode, and and whatnot. And I don't care, man. I prefer to sit
Whatever.
there and laugh.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, they're making fun of of 80s anime, right? Because they even had like the characters that literally had the same expressions and the same
Mm.
tropes that they did in the original show. Like
Right.
I'm just thinking back, oh my god, that's the original Voltron show.
Yeah.
The whole the anime reactions and stuff, and it was just hilarious. But and I actually had a little play on the little Tony Montana,
Oh my God, that's
at
right.
the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
A little bit of Goodfellas and Fat Rick and Yo Yo Rick and just
Yo, yeah.
the more
It
I
was
think about it, I
vintage
start
Rick
laughing
and
a little
Morty
bit.
ultimately. I thought
Yeah, yeah,
it was just a great episode, and I'm glad it came
yeah.
back to form. Right, the last few have, because
Yes,
it was a
absolutely.
couple before that was just it was alright, right? And it wasn't what we were used to from Rick and Morty, but that's back on. I guess we haven't talked about the show for a few weeks, and it deserves to kind of get a little recap every so often.
Yeah,
Because you're
yeah.
not watching it, I mean, you should.
That's
Yeah.
another T-shirt I need to find. Goop World.
That shows just one T-shirt after another at the end of the day. And so I mean, listen, I know not everyone likes Rick and Morty. I get it. Got a huge fan base. Great if you haven't seen it, check it out. Again, HBO Max has all the first 5 seasons, 4 seasons, whatever it is.
4 seasons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
4 seasons.
they'll get the fifth one once this one's
Yeah,
over.
eventually.
But right
So
now, you can only watch it on Adult
Adult Swim.
Swim
Yeah,
or Cartoon.
but you
Yeah,
can catch
Cartoon
up.
Network / Adult
Yeah,
Swim.
yeah, so you can definitely catch up. It's just 30-minute episodes, so it's not a big deal. It's like there are 10
Yeah.
episodes a season or something, so it's not a lot to watch
Hmm.
to binge on. But it's really good. It's a great show, and I again highly recommend and all that. So that's what we have this week. Again, next week we got a couple of things popping up, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we have Monday, tomorrow, as you say, on FX on Hulu is Reservation
That's
Dogs,
the one I was thinking of.
which is the comedy, which is obviously based on a reservation. Obviously, American Indians is the main characters. And then we also have The Kingdom, which is a Spanish drama
Mm-hmm.
coming out on Friday on Netflix. There's the movie we forgot to mention last week, Beckett, which stars
Oh yeah,
John David Washington, right?
yes, of
So
course.
let's see if that's a good Netflix movie. And then the big shows for this week, definitely, we got Titans dropping Thursdays on HBO
HBO Max.
Max, and we have Stargirl season 2, which we're not sure what to expect, but let's
Right.
watch and see before we pass judgment.
And of course, What If on Disney Plus.
Oh my
Yeah,
God!
that
So
starts on
apologies.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
What If the
yeah.
Wednesday show? Yeah, What If is going to be for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, so we'll be out taking a deep dive into all that next week. So that being said, you guys check us out. We appreciate you watching. Comment below what shows we should be watching. Do you agree with our choices here? Share, like, of course, the usual. Subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.